Hello, listeners. Welcome to Stories by Peter Hubb. If you enjoy gripping stories about drama, betrayal, revenge, and the hard road to redemption, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a chapter. The summer evening light washed over the quiet neighborhood of Lincoln Park, Chicago. Two houses stood side by side, separated only by a neat hedge of green and years of shared laughter. Inside one house lived Alicia Carter, 40 years old, a woman of sharp edges and careful plans. In the house next door lived her elder sister, Mia Carter, 42, softer in presence but equally strong-willed. Her life shaped more by impulses and feelings than by strategies. Alicia was an engineer by training, a woman who loved structures, both physical and metaphorical. Her friends often joked she saw the world as blueprints. Every problem had a design, every solution a framework. Mia, on the other hand, was a painter who never sold her paintings, a woman who lived for expression. She believed emotions were the only truths worth chasing.
They had grown up inseparable, surviving childhood hardships, heartbreaks, and the loss of their parents together. In adulthood, they chose to remain close, not in the same home, but in neighboring houses. Dinners together were a ritual. Weekends often shared, and secrets often exchanged late into the night. On one such evening, over pasta and wine at Mia's kitchen table, the conversation turned to dreams. "You know what I've always wanted?" Mia said, swirling her glass lazily. "A place where art could breathe. A space where people walk in and feel inspired. Not a gallery, not a school, something in between. A home for creativity." Alicia leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. "That's beautiful. But do you mean like a business model or just a personal dream?" Mia shrugged. "I don't know. I just imagine it. A big, open loft, walls covered with paintings, kids learning, adults experimenting. A sanctuary for art." Alicia's eyes narrowed slightly as she listened. She wasn't dismissing her sister's vision. On the contrary, something about it resonated. She pulled her notebook closer and scribbled a few lines. "What if you structured it as a community center? Classes, workshops, rentable studio spaces, that could work financially." "That's you. I throw an idea into the air and you immediately start measuring the angles and walls." "It's not a bad thing," Alicia replied with a smile. "Dreams can be built. They just need foundations." Mia nodded, though she didn't think much of it. To her, it was just another one of those dreamy conversations, like talking about moving to Italy or starting a band. But for Alicia, something clicked that night. The idea stayed with her, lingering long after the dishes were done and the sisters went to bed in their separate homes. That night, Alicia opened her laptop and began to sketch possibilities. Floor layouts, revenue streams, grant opportunities. She didn't know it yet, but this was the first brick in a path that would lead them both into a storm. The next morning, Alicia woke with her mind buzzing. Numbers, diagrams, and fragments of Mia's words circled like restless birds in her head. She brewed her coffee strong and black, sat at her desk, and opened her laptop again. The cursor blinked on a blank page, daring her to take the next step. She titled the document, "The Creative Haven Project." By noon, Alicia had mapped out a rough outline. Courses in painting, pottery, digital design, and music. Spaces for community events. Monthly memberships for artists who needed a studio. Partnerships with schools. She even noted possibilities for funding through city arts programs and nonprofit grants. It wasn't just a dream now. It was a blueprint. That evening, she stopped by Mia's house. The smell of oil paint and turpentine hit her as soon as Mia opened the door, brush still in hand and streaks of blue across her apron. "You're working again?" Aaliyah asked with a smile. "Always," Mia replied, stepping aside. "Come in. What's up?" Aaliyah sat at the dining table, pulling her laptop from her bag. "I've been thinking about what you said last night, about the art sanctuary."
Mia raised her eyebrows but stayed standing, brush dangling between her fingers. "That was just talk, Aaliyah." "Maybe for you," Aaliyah said, clicking open her presentation, "but I see something here. Look, I drafted a concept, classes, community workshops, sustainable business model. It could actually work." Mia approached slowly, peering at the screen. She chuckled. "You really went all in, didn't you?" Aaliyah's eyes gleamed. "Tell me this doesn't feel real. Tell me this isn't something people would flock to." Mia tilted her head, considering. The diagrams were clean, the ideas solid, but for her, inspiration had always been fluid, fleeting. "It's impressive, I won't lie, but I don't know, Aaliyah. Running a business? That's never been my thing. I just paint." "Exactly," Aaliyah said firmly. "That's why I'd handle the logistics, you'd bring the soul. I'd bring the structure." Mia set her brush down, lips pursed. "So what are you saying? That we actually try this?" "I think we should. I think it could change our lives." Mia laughed again, this time softer, almost wistful. "Well, maybe, but don't expect me to be your accountant." Aaliyah grinned. "Never. Just keep painting. I'll handle the rest." Mia didn't realize it, but Aaliyah's tone carried something final, decisive. From that moment on, Aaliyah had silently claimed the dream as her mission. The seed had been planted, and she intended to see it grow into something unshakable. And as the weeks went by, she did.
Weeks passed, and Aaliyah worked tirelessly on the project. She visited city offices, spoke with potential investors, and refined every detail of her proposal. She didn't just want an idea, she wanted something concrete. Mia, meanwhile, continued painting, sometimes offering suggestions, but never committing herself to the business side. She admired her sister's energy, but never thought the plan would go beyond the page. But Aaliyah's determination carried her forward. After 3 months, she stood in front of a committee of city officials and investors, pitching the Creative Haven project with a passion that lit up the room. Her slides were polished, her numbers convincing. And when she finished, the applause was more than polite. It was enthusiastic. Aaliyah had secured the funding. When she returned home with the signed documents, she knocked on Mia's door, breathless with excitement. "It's happening! They loved it! We're getting the grant, Mia! This is real!" Mia's eyes widened. For a moment, she shared in the thrill. But as Aaliyah explained the next steps, leases, staff hiring, construction plans, Mia began to feel a strange distance. The dream she had casually spoken of over dinner had now taken on a life of its own, shaped entirely by Aaliyah.
The Creative Haven opened its doors a year later. The launch was a triumph. Local artists flocked in, workshops filled up, and the press hailed Aaliyah as a visionary entrepreneur. Mia attended the opening, standing by her sister's side, smiling for photos. But deep inside, a flicker of resentment stirred. She remembered the night she had spoken the idea aloud. She remembered how Aaliyah's eyes had lit up. Wasn't this mine too, she thought? Aaliyah, oblivious to Mia's growing unease, poured herself into the business. She hired staff, expanded programs, and reinvested profits. Within 2 years, the Creative Haven was a multi-million-dollar enterprise. The sisters' lives changed drastically. Aaliyah became a public figure in Chicago's art scene, while Mia remained in her quiet studio, painting in obscurity. And then, one evening, Mia broke the silence. "You know," she said over coffee, "this was my idea. I think it's only fair I get half." Aaliyah froze. The words landed like a stone between them. "What do you mean?" she asked carefully. Mia's eyes hardened. "I'm the one who dreamed of an art sanctuary. You just built it. But without me, there wouldn't have been a project in the first place." Aaliyah shook her head slowly. "Mia, you know that's not true. You gave me a spark, sure, but everything else, the planning, the funding, the execution, that was me. You never even wanted to run a business." Mia crossed her arms. "Dreams matter too. Without me, there's no Creative Haven. I deserve my share." Aaliyah stared at her sister in disbelief, pain tightening in her chest. She realized in that moment that the bond between them had shifted into dangerous territory. 3 weeks later, an email arrived like a door swinging open. The city's Community Development Office announced a public-private partnership grant to revitalize a dormant warehouse near the river. The program would award a multi-year lease with favorable terms to a proposal that combined public good with sustainable operations. Aaliyah read the RFP twice, then a third time. It was as if the document had been written for the Creative Haven project. Classes, artist residencies, youth programs, public exhibitions. She could feel the bones of a winning proposal pushing through the page. She walked next door, knocking on Mia's door with more urgency than usual. When Mia opened, Aaliyah held up her phone. "Look, this is it. A city space, cheap, central, huge. If we move fast, we can pitch Creative Haven as the anchor tenant." Mia scanned the email, then looked back with guarded enthusiasm. "It sounds perfect. For you?" "For us," Aaliyah corrected gently. "I want you associated from the start. Artist in residence, lead of visual arts programming. Your name should be on the first mural we commission." Mia's smile was small, non-committal. "You really think they'd pick us?" "I know they'll pick a plan that is clear and deliverable," Aaliyah said. "Let me do that part. You help me with the spirit, the look, the feel, the first showcase." Mia nodded. "Okay, but I can't be in meetings all day. I have a commission due." "Then give me your best ideas in one sitting," Aaliyah said, already opening her notebook. "Colors, themes, the kind of first exhibition that announces who we are." For an hour they brainstormed, Mia's voice bright, Aaliyah's pen relentless. By the end, the page was full of Mia's imagery and Aaliyah's arrows and boxes. The combination still felt like magic. 2 days later, Aaliyah was touring the warehouse with a city liaison, hard hat snug over her hair. She moved through the space with a surveyor's patience, measuring spans, noting light, calculating occupancy. In her head, Mia's imagined sanctuary translated into load calculations and program schedules. "Your proposal will need community impact metrics," the liaison said, walking beside her. "Scholarships, partnerships, measurable outcomes." "I've started a list," Aaliyah replied. "We'll partner with neighborhood schools and a re-entry program. We'll track attendance and skill progression." The liaison smiled. "That's the language the review board speaks." Aaliyah did not mention that Mia had barely replied to her last 3 emails. The day of the pitch arrived with a sky so clear it felt staged. In a small auditorium at City Hall, 5 project teams waited their turn, hands wrapped around coffee cups, eyes scanning slide decks. Aaliyah sat in the front row, blazer pressed, notes distilled to bullet points. Mia slipped into the seat beside her seconds before they were called. "You made it," Alicia whispered. "Wouldn't miss it," Mia said, though her hair was still damp from a rushed shower. On stage, Alicia spoke the language of feasibility. Revenue streams, sliding scale tuition, grant matches, operations calendars. She showcased renderings of open studios and modest performance spaces, then landed where she always wanted to land. This isn't about commodifying art. It's about making the practice of art sustainable for the people who need it most. She gestured toward Mia. Our artist-in-residence will curate our opening series, Home, Work, pieces about the labor of creating beauty in a city that often forgets it. Mia stood and bowed slightly, receiving a ripple of approving murmurs. Questions came like soft jabs: security, insurance, ADA compliance. Alicia answered without flinching. When the panel asked about community trust, she spoke of listening sessions and shared governance. When they asked about risk, she showed contingency budgets. Afterward, in the hallway, Mia squeezed her arm. "You were incredible." Alicia exhaled, for the first time letting herself feel it. "We did it." As they waited for results, other teams passed, whispers floating around them. A man from a rival nonprofit approached Alicia. "Impressive deck. Who did your financials?" "I did. It's my background." He nodded, impressed. When he left, Mia nudged her. "He thought you hired out." Alicia smiled. "We're scrappier than we look." Mia's gaze drifted to the doors of the review room. "I hope they understood the soul of it." They did. And if they didn't, we'll show them. The call came 3 days later. Alicia was at her desk, fingers drumming, when the city liaison's name flashed on her phone. "Congratulations," the voice said. "The board selected Creative Haven. You'll receive the award letter and draft lease this afternoon." Alicia stood so quickly, her chair collided with the wall. She caught her breath, then whooped, alone in her living room, face hot with tears. The first person she texted was Mia. "We got it! We got it!" Mia replied with a string of hearts and fireworks. Then, "Dinner? Champagne?" That night, they toasted at the little Italian place they loved. Mia's eyes shone. "To us, to the dream finally choosing us back." "To the work that made it possible," Alicia added. She paused, then clinked anyway. "To both." In the days that followed, press mentions trickled in. A local magazine wanted photos of the founders. Alicia hesitated at the word, but agreed to a joint shoot. Mia among canvases, Alicia with rolled plans under her arm. The caption later read, "Sisters turn empty warehouse into art sanctuary." At first the phrase warmed Alicia. Then she noticed a comment thread online where someone wrote, "Heard Mia came up with the idea years ago." And another replied, "Alicia is just the business end." Mia DM'd her a screenshot with laughing emojis. "People always know the truth." Alicia stared at the winking face longer than she meant to. Something prickled under her skin. When the award letter arrived, Alicia forwarded it to Mia and their new pro bono attorney. The lease would be under a new nonprofit entity, Creative Haven Chicago, with Alicia listed as executive director and Mia as artist-in-residence, per the org chart the city had approved. Mia called the minute she read it. "Executive director? Why not co-founders?" "We are co-founders in spirit," Alicia said carefully, "but the city approved our operational structure based on my management plan. Your role is protected and paid. It's what we agreed." Silence. Then Mia said, "I guess I just pictured us equals." "We are equals as sisters," Alicia replied, feeling the floor shift a degree. "But governance is about clarity. It's how we keep this alive." Mia didn't argue. She just said, "Okay,"
in a voice that rang like something fragile being set down too hard.
The days after Alicia's success were filled with celebration and relief. Her business had finally started to stabilize. Money was flowing in, and she felt like she could finally breathe again after years of struggle. Her neighbors congratulated her, her small circle of friends admired her determination, and even distant relatives sent her warm words of support. But beneath the glow of achievement, there was a shadow lurking, a growing tension with Mia. It happened on a Sunday evening. Mia had come over for dinner, something they used to do regularly. Alicia cooked her favorite pasta, and for the first half hour, everything felt normal. They laughed about old memories, reminisced about their parents, and spoke of how proud their mother would have been if she had seen them now. But as the plates emptied, Mia grew quieter, her fork moving slower across her plate. Alicia noticed the change immediately. Finally, Mia put down her fork, folded her hands, and looked straight at her sister. Her eyes were steady, but carried something Alicia hadn't seen before. A kind of entitlement mixed with determination. "Alicia," Mia began, her voice calm but firm, "we need to talk about your business, about the company." Alicia raised an eyebrow, slightly confused. "What about it?" Mia exhaled. "I want my share. 50%. Half of everything you've built. You know as well as I do that the idea wasn't just yours. It came from me first, back when we were brainstorming. I deserve half." The words hit Alicia like a slap. She blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. "Half? Mia, are you serious?" "Yes," Mia replied, unwavering. "Dead serious. You know, I was the one who first brought up the concept, the angle that made it different. You wouldn't have gotten that tender if it weren't for me. I might not have put in the hours, but the foundation came from me, and you know it." Alicia leaned back, crossing her arms. "Mia, I don't know what you're talking about. The idea, the design, the entire project, it was mine. You might have thrown in a suggestion or two, but that's not the same as building the company. I worked nights. I sacrificed. I put in the effort. You didn't." Mia's jaw tightened. "That's not fair. You're rewriting history because it benefits you. Don't act like I was just some bystander. Without me, you wouldn't even have thought of it in the first place." The room grew heavier, silence stretching between them. Alicia's heart pounded. She wanted to believe her sister was joking, that this was some kind of misplaced attempt at humor. But the seriousness in her eyes left no room for doubt. "Mia," Alicia said quietly, "I love you. But what you're saying right now, it's not true, and it hurts. I can't just hand over half of everything because you claim the idea was yours. That's not how this works." Mia's jaw pressed into a thin line. "Then maybe we'll have to see about that, because I'm not letting this go." Alicia stared at her, speechless. She had faced challenges from competitors, from clients, even from herself. But never in her wildest dreams had she imagined that her own sister would turn into her accuser. The bond they had always leaned on now trembled like a fragile glass ready to shatter. That night ended with no hugs, no shared dessert, no laughter. Mia left without saying goodbye, and Alicia, sitting alone in her kitchen, felt the ache of a new kind of loss. The possibility that success had cost her not just sleepless nights, but her sister too.
The week following that tense dinner was marked by silence. Alicia avoided calling Mia, unsure of how to reach out without igniting the flames further. Mia, on her part, stayed distant, answering texts with curt replies or not at all. The warmth that once colored their daily interactions had cooled into something icy and unfamiliar. But Alicia's unease didn't last long. One evening, as she sat reviewing contracts in her office, her phone buzzed with a message from a mutual friend. "Mia's been talking. She says you stole her idea." Alicia froze, her fingers hovering above the keyboard. Her chest tightened. It wasn't just between them anymore. Mia was spreading her accusations to others. By the end of the week, Alicia started hearing whispers in social circles. Some people avoided eye contact when she walked into the room. Others spoke in hushed tones, just loud enough for her to catch fragments. Her sister's idea, greedy, unfair. Each rumor chipped away at Alicia's peace of mind. Success had once brought her admiration. Now it carried suspicion. Determined not to let gossip define her, Alicia called Mia. After several unanswered calls, Mia finally picked up. "Mia, what are you doing?" Alicia demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. "What do you think I'm doing?" Mia snapped back. "I'm fighting for what's mine. You didn't take me seriously, so now I'm making sure people know the truth." "Mia, this isn't the truth. You're twisting things, and it's destroying us." "You destroyed us when you decided to keep everything for yourself. You think you can just dismiss me? I won't let you." The call ended abruptly. Alicia sat in the silence, her phone still in her hand, her heart pounding. She had thought Mia's demand at dinner was a moment of passion, something that would fade. But now it was growing, spreading, infecting everything they had shared as sisters. Soon after, Alicia received the first official blow, a notice from Mia's attorney. The letter was formal, cold, and damning. It alleged that Mia was co-creator of the business concept and entitled to half of Alicia's profits. The words blurred as Alicia read them, her pulse quickening with every line. Her hands trembled as she set the paper down. This wasn't just an argument anymore. It was war.
Alicia knew she had to act quickly. The letter from Mia's attorney wasn't just a warning. It was the opening move in what could become a prolonged battle. She gathered all her records, emails, drafts, receipts, notes, and every document that traced the business back to her initial idea. She even dug out the old notebooks she had scribbled in years before the business took shape. Her legal team reassured her. "You have everything you need to prove ownership," her attorney said firmly. "She has no grounds to stand on, but you need to prepare for this to get messy." And messy it became. Within weeks, Mia escalated by taking out loans to hire her own aggressive legal counsel. Rumors intensified, social media posts appeared, vague but poisonous, clearly aimed at Alicia. Once proud friends grew wary, unwilling to take sides. Alicia's world, once filled with confidence and admiration, now felt like a battlefield. Late one night, exhausted, Alicia sat in her living room, staring at old photos of her and Mia. Their childhood smiles seemed to mock her present reality. She whispered to herself, "How did we get here?" The bond she once thought unbreakable was now under the scrutiny of strangers in suits. The day of the first hearing arrived. Alicia dressed with precision, her power suit a shield against the chaos inside her heart. As she entered the courtroom, she caught sight of Mia across the aisle. Mia's expression was cold, her jaw set with determination. The sisters didn't exchange a word. The attorneys began their arguments. Alicia's lawyer presented a meticulous timeline of her work, citing evidence after evidence. Every point reinforced that the concept and execution were hers alone. Mia's side leaned heavily on emotion, painting Alicia as the greedy sister who had cut her out of what was rightfully hers. As witnesses were called and documents displayed, Alicia kept her eyes forward, refusing to flinch under Mia's accusatory glare. Each session stretched on for hours, draining her, but Alicia's case only grew stronger. Still, the emotional toll was undeniable.
At night, Alicia lay awake, wondering if she had lost her sister forever. Weeks of arguments and evidence culminated in the judge's decision. The courtroom was silent as the ruling was read. Mia's claims were dismissed. Furthermore, the court fined her for filing a false claim and attempting to mislead the court with fabricated evidence. The sound of the gavel struck like thunder. Alicia exhaled for the first time in weeks, relief washing over her. But as she looked across the room, she saw Mia's face collapse, her bravado crumbling. Tears streamed down her sister's cheeks, but her eyes still burned with wounded pride. Alicia stood, gathering her belongings, and walked toward her. In a voice clear enough for all to hear, she said, "Mia, I'm sorry greed blinded you, but I refuse to let it destroy you. I will cover your debts and even the fine, because no matter what has happened, I still love you as my sister." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Mia looked up, stunned, but couldn't find the words to reply. Alicia turned and walked out, her heart heavy, yet resolute.
The courthouse steps buzzed with whispers. Reporters jotted notes, cameras clicked, and onlookers murmured about Alicia's astonishing act of grace. But Alicia felt none of it. She walked steadily toward her car, her mind heavy with conflicting emotions, relief from winning, sorrow from losing her sister in spirit. That night, Alicia sat in her kitchen with a glass of tea, untouched, before her. The house was quiet, too quiet. For years, even after disagreements, Mia had been part of her daily life. Now she was an echo in the distance. Alicia replayed her words from the courtroom. Had she done the right thing by forgiving Mia so openly, or had she simply made herself vulnerable again? Days turned into weeks, and Mia did not call. Alicia waited, half expecting a knock at her door, a letter, or even a message. Nothing came. Instead, she heard through mutual acquaintances that Mia was struggling. The loans she had taken weighed heavily. Friends distanced themselves, unwilling to involve themselves in her feud. Yet Mia refused to reach out, her pride still a barrier between them. Alicia considered visiting her. More than once she drove past Mia's neighborhood, slowing as she passed the familiar house. But she never stopped. Something inside told her that Mia would have to make the first move this time. One chilly morning, Alicia went for a walk near the lakeshore. To her surprise, she spotted Mia sitting on a bench, hunched forward, her hands wrapped tightly around a cup of coffee. Her shoulders sagged in defeat. For a moment, Alicia hesitated. Then, summoning courage, she approached. Mia glanced up, startled, her eyes weary. For several seconds, silence stretched between them, the gulf of pain and pride almost palpable. Finally, Mia muttered, "Why did you do it? Why pay my debts after everything I did to you?" Alicia sat beside her. "Because you're my sister," she said softly, "and I refuse to let greed erase the love we grew up with. You may hate me, Mia, but I don't hate you." Mia's lips trembled. She turned away, unable to hold Alicia's gaze. "I don't know if I can ever forgive myself." Over the next weeks, their encounters grew more frequent. Small conversations led to cautious laughter, though the wounds were still raw. Alicia didn't press for apologies. Instead, she showed up with patience, knowing time could soften the sharpest of edges. Mia, humbled and quieter than ever, slowly began to accept the hand extended to her. Their relationship would never be the same as before, but perhaps it didn't need to be. Perhaps it could be something new, born not out of blind trust, but from hard-won resilience. Months passed. and slowly the walls between Alicia and Mia began to crumble. Shared memories, long-forgotten jokes, and the quiet comfort of familiarity resurfaced. Alicia made no demands, and Mia, aware of the depth of her sister's forgiveness, started to open up about her regrets, her mistakes, and the lessons she had learned the hard way. They visited their old childhood haunts, reminisced over family dinners, and began discussing dreams and plans once thought lost to anger. Trust, fragile as it was, began to knit together the two sisters. Alicia invited Mia to the office, not as a partner, but as an intern learning the ropes. It was a symbolic gesture, a chance for Mia to prove herself in a controlled environment while building her own sense of purpose again. Mia was hesitant at first, but gradually embraced the opportunity, eager to rebuild her life with dignity. With time, they started collaborating on small projects, learning to balance their past grievances with newfound respect and shared ambition. Their relationship remained complicated, nuanced, but it was real and evolving. One evening, as they closed the office together, Alicia turned to Mia. "You know, I've learned that love doesn't disappear because of mistakes. It changes, adapts, and survives if we let it." Mia nodded, tears glinting in her eyes. "I don't deserve you, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of your forgiveness." Alicia smiled, a mix of pride and relief washing over her. That's all anyone can do: learn, grow, and cherish the people who refuse to let go of you. And with that, the sisters left the office side by side, their past behind them, and the future a fragile but promising horizon. Life is full of tests, misunderstandings, and moments where greed and pride can drive wedges between even the closest hearts. But love, forgiveness, and the willingness to rebuild can bridge almost any gap. Now, I ask you, dear listener, if someone you love deeply wronged you, could you forgive them fully and offer a second chance? Or would pride and past pain make it impossible?